Hey, welcome back. I want to talk about what is a strategic reserve and why it's important, because we've been hearing an awful lot about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but what does it actually mean? So I'm going to explain what it is and also putting it within the context of Bitcoin. Why is it important to adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve at the nation state level, at a corporation level, or indeed at an individual family level? What does it all mean in practice? So let me jump into all of those things in the next few moments. Okay, so I'm going to provide you a definition of what is a strategic reserve. It's actually the reserve of a commodity or items that is held back from normal use by governments, organizations, or businesses in pursuance of a particular strategy or to cope with unexpected events. So really it's just used strictly for emergency purposes at a national level. And what are the examples of strategic reserves? Well, there's several out there, and some of them are listed here. So you've got a strategic petroleum reserves. I think that's one of the most popular reserve that all governments have. Also, there are other commodity items that are used as strategic reserves, such as in the case of uranium, helium gas, or even grain reserve, and certainly gold reserve. And then you have other international strategic reserve. In the case of the state of Quebec in Canada, interestingly, they have a strategic reserve for maple syrup producers. And then you have the last example of a strategic national stockpile of medical supplies in the US. I think this last one is become more recently important given the outbreak of COVID that we've had. It begs the need for emergency medical supply indeed to be treated as a strategic reserve for every nation state. So that is it makes total sense. So these are just a handful of examples of strategic reserve. And then what can a strategic reserve be? I've already given examples of commodity type reserves, but there are other forms of strategic reserves, such as in the case of finance, you can ring fence funding or indeed capital reserves of a large corporation. And then in the case of other types of commodities or stocks or equities, well, you have examples of those listed here. It's to do with food when it comes to rationing and petrol, which we've discussed. And then lastly, a strategic reserve can indeed be a specific machinery, such as railroad cars or steam locomotives, that can be used in emergency situations. I'm going to talk about what does this mean within the context of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, when we talk about inspiration from traditional reserve, such as nations holding gold or indeed oil reserves for emergencies, Bitcoin is emerging as a digital equivalent. Now, these reserves serve as a safety net in times of economic instability or geopolitical tensions. Bitcoin, with its decentralized and immutable nature, offers a modern twist to this age-old strategy. On the point of acting as a hedge against inflation, fiat currencies rely on credit and debt, which means they're designed to lose value over time. Every new dollar that is printed or borrowed dilutes purchasing power. Bitcoin's fixed supply, on the other hand, ensures it doesn't fall into this trap, making it a powerful inflation hedge. As a global trade utility, Bitcoin could also serve as a reserve currency for international trade. For example, countries like Russia have explored using Bitcoin for cross-border commerce, especially in transactions that bypass the US dollar. This adds another layer of strategic importance to hold Bitcoin. On the last point about game theory and competitive adoption, here's where it gets really interesting. If one nation adopts Bitcoin as a reserve, others are likely to follow to avoid being left behind. We've seen similar patterns with gold, where countries like China increase their reserves to hedge against US monetary policies. Now, what are the strategic value of holding Bitcoin for corporations and individuals? What do they look like? Well, in the case of corporations, they can adopt and use Bitcoin to hedge against fiat volatility and protect their balance sheets. It's not just about storing value. It's also a signal to investors that the company is forward-thinking and prepared for a decentralized financial future. In the case of individuals or indeed families, at a personal level, Bitcoin offers protection against inflation and the erosion of purchasing power. It's portable, censorship resistant, and gives you control over your wealth in uncertain times. In a world where fiat currencies lose value, Bitcoin provides stability. Now, the market dynamics is dictated on the Bitcoin supply cap at 21 million, and only 3.125 Bitcoin are mined every 10 minutes. With miners increasingly holding their rewards, sell pressure is decreasing, which could lead to rapid price appreciation as demand grows. And finally, the competitive advantage in reserves, particularly for nations, having a Bitcoin reserve is a strategic move to maintain or gain influence. As the US or other countries build reserves, others will feel compelled to follow, ensuring they're not left behind in a decentralized financial future. So that's all for today. Hopefully I've given you the clarity as to what is a strategic reserve, the examples that we have, and why Bitcoin plays such an important role in holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset for at a national level, at a corporation level, and indeed at individual family level. Bitcoin is no longer just a speculative asset as we are seeing. It's now rapidly evolving into a strategic reserve. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment sections below. So until next time.